Shalom, we're continuing to learn Zohar and Sweeter Than Honey. So it says that there should be lights in the sky, in the heavens, and ma'orot, which means there should be lights, which means like the stars, right? The moon, the sun, those are shining lights. So the word ma'orot is Mem Aleph Resh Tuf, which would be M-A-R-T, right? Now you can write it with the vowel of Vav, which is like a Vav in this context with this vowel would be an O. So it would be M-A-O-R-T. Mem Aleph Resh Vav Tuf. Or you can do it without the vowel, without the O. So over here, when it says God created the world and He created the lights in the heavens, it's without the Vav, it's without the extra letter and vowel of O. So what is this telling us? So it hints to us that what happened is that it included in it the snake, the bad snake, was included in the foundation of the kingdom, which is called the rakia. Rakia is like a sky or a curtain, like a separation. Rakia Hashemayim, it's the curtain or the separation in heaven. But the snake was included in the so this bad snake somehow, that was the story of the snake, was included in the foundation of the kingdom. That means since God said there should be lights, and it was missing the vav, missing the vowel O, and that's a word that means like it's a curse. So this shows that that there was this snake that was this external klipa, this external husk of the snake managed to find its way in, right? Because there's actually a need to have the klipas, these husks in the world, these shells, and I mean, you have to have good and evil in order to choose good, right? That's one reason why you need evil. Why need the klipas? That's a whole thing to go into. Why do we need bad in the world at all, right? What good is it? And that we'll get into, it talks about it, but basically it's to give free choice, and in some cases it's like a shell or like a peel around a fruit. So you have to take off the peel, but the peel has a purpose. It is actually to protect the inside of the fruit. So you have this tough outer shell. So there's actually reasons why you need to have the klipas, but you have to also know, to not let it take up too much importance, and also to remove it when you need to. So since what happened is that the snake was included in the foundation of the kingdom, so it was able to put a poison, a zuhama, which is like a poison, and it caused a separation between the Zer Anpin and Nukva, between the six spheres and the lowest sphere of kingdom. And the Zeir Anpin, the small face, which is the six sphirot, it's called the sun, right? And it's the sun unites with Malchut's kingdom, which is Sihara, which is like the queen, like the moon, right? Because its light becomes smaller. That means the light of this moon becomes smaller. The moon sometimes gets bigger, sometimes gets smaller. And it explains that we learn that about the snake being included from the word ma'orot, lights, which is missing the letter vav. So it shows there's something missing, and that's how we know that the snake caused this, was able to get in and cause this missing, right? And when you have the word ma'orot, which means lights, but you don't put in the extra vav, so it could also mean another word which means like a curse or like a sickness, right? And this doesn't mean that there was above in the actual spheres of Malchut and Zeir Anpin that there was any curse, God forbid. There was no curses up in these heavenly worlds. What it means is that there was a curse that spread out and went down to the lower world. And that's what it says, that when God said, you see, because of this caused, that the snake caused that the earth would be cursed. So what does it mean? Like it says that the ground is cursed. That's what it says in the Torah, right? Because of the snake. And what it means is the lower world. That means not in the upper heavenly worlds. There wasn't any curse. There's not a curse up above in heaven, right? The curse means that down in the physical worlds there are problems, right? There's because of the curse of the earth, because of the snake. So you have things which are not running smoothly, right? And he explains more. So the when it says marot, the lights, when it's missing the vav, it's talking about the malchut, the kingdom, right? And the rakia hashamayim, the sky of the heavens, that's the sun, and that's the tiferet. The tiferet is the beauty or compassion, which is called the sun. And tiferet, you see, when you have the face of the six sphirot, it's also called that it's all just the tiferet, the compassion, or the sphere of chesed, of loving kindness, strength, compassion, and beauty, right? Victory, splendor, and foundation. All those six together are the partsuf of Zeir Anpin, and it's also called the small face. It's also called just by the sphere of beauty, right? Compassion, right? So this is also called the sun, and both of them they're included as one in the secret of the the unification between the Zeir Anpin and the Nukva, between the six Spherots and the kingdom. And what happens is it shines and sends forth downwards energy to the worlds of Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya. These are the words of creation, formation, and action. It comes down from above, right? And it goes down into these lower worlds, and it shines down into this physical world. And the proof is, like it says about the earth, it says on the earth, and it doesn't say in the earth, right? So when you say on, al means on, or like above, right? And ba'aretz, which means in the earth, means like more like inside the earth. So since it says on the earth, so if you would have said in the earth, you would have understood that it means only down in this world. But since it says on the earth, it implies that it's both above and below. Because the word al, which means above, it's inferring that we're talking about also above. And also below, because it says the earth, which means below. So we further say that it says V'hayu la'otot u'lamodim, and it should be for signs and for calendar, for dates, for times. So these stars, the sun and the moon, what it means that through these lights and through the sun and through the moon, we can do the calculations of when are the holidays, when are the times. We use both the sun and the moon to calculate. And the counting and the numbers of all the dates of all the times and all the holidays and the years, they're in the moon, which is the secret of kingdom. And because of these aspects, these lower aspects, you can therefore give it a quantity, a number, right? A measurement. Right? Since we have a physical sun, right, and a physical moon, you can actually give it these numbers and dates and times. Whereas if it was just the spiritual, you wouldn't be able to quantify it. Rabbi Shimon says all sorts of gematriot. Gematriot means like not counting the numbers and the letters and the numbers relating to the letters. Like, for example, you have the name Eheye, which is Aleph, Hey, Yud, Hey, which would be a A-H-I-H. That's one of God's names. And that would be the same numerical value of another name of Yud, Hey, Vav, which is I-H. Vav would be, if you look at the alphabet, right? Aleph Bet is the Hebrew letters. Alphabet is the A-B. Alpha Beta comes from the Greek. alpha and beta. Now, the letters of Hebrew and Greek and English mostly correspond in the right order, but there are some exceptions, partially because of vowels. In Hebrew, you have letters. You have, instead of a letter for a vowel, you have like A, E, I, O, U. We have dots, different types of dots that we put above or under or in the letters, and those are the vowels. So alpha, A, would be aleph, right? Beta, B, would be bet. Then we have C. In Hebrew, that would be not a C, it would be a more like a G letter. It's a gimel, right? But then you go delta, D, dalid, right? E, right? E would correspond to a hey, although it's not exactly the same, it's kind of similar. Now an F, so that we have a vav. Vav is not exactly sounding like an F, but it's sort of in its place. And then after an F would come a G, so we'd have, that's also not exactly in place. You have Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalid, Hey, Vav, Zayin. Zayin would be where the G is, right? Although it's not exactly the same sound, it's kind of similar. Okay. So H and Chet, those would correspond because a Chet is a ch. In English, you don't have that actual sound, right? So usually it's pronounced ha, like an H. Okay. Then we have I. I would be a yud. Now we just skipped a letter of Hebrew between the chet and the yud. There's a tet. That skipped partially because it'll come up later as a T, and it would also be a tuf. Tuf is basically almost the same as a tet. So it skipped in the alphabet of ABC. And then you go straight to the I, which would be a yud, right? Now, it goes on. Because after H, I, J, now we skip in Hebrew the J because we already had the G and the Gimel. G, J is basically like a Gimel, right? We had that by the C. Now, but we have for the after H, I, G, we have the K, okay? We have the K. K is a chaf, right? And again, we don't, after the chaf, we have lamed, which would be a L. So we have K, L, and then the M is a mem. Nun is an N, right? It's all pretty much in order here. So then we have an O, we have a samach. What's interesting is the samach doesn't sound like an O, but it looks like it, right? It's a circle, like an O. So we have M, O, and then we have a P, which would be a pei. So we have, in Hebrew would be kaf, lamed, mem, nun, samich. Okay, then we have ayin. Ayin actually sounds like an O. In a way, sounds a bit like an O. Then we'd have a P, right? P is a pei. Kuf would be a Q. R would be a resh. S would be a shin or a sin. Sin is more like the sound of an S, which is, again, shin and sin are the same. It's just where you put a dot. You can sometimes count them as just one letter of a shin. Right? So that's S. Tough would be T. And there ends the Hebrew alphabet. And then you have U, which is a vowel letter, V, which in a way is would be a vav, which we had where the F was. The F is the same as a pei, which would be a P. Okay, pei and fei are the same letter, depends where you put the dot, so it's a P or a F. Okay. So then we have so the alphabet, we have O P Q R S T. Okay, we did those. U V, right? The V would be a vav. U would also be a vav. It depends where you put the dot. W, that could also be a vav depending where you put the dot. Again, so these are all very vowel kind of letters. And then X, we don't really have that in Hebrew. And then the Y is basically like an I or like a Yud. Okay. And then Z is Z or Zion. Okay. So that's the alphabet. I showed you how it very much correlates with the alphabet and the Greek alphabeta. So now we understood the order of the letters. Now in Hebrew we also give numbers to the letters. The first 10 letters have a numerical value of 1 to 10. Aleph has a numerical value of 1. A would be 1. B would be 2. Okay, till you get to 10, that would be the Yud, the I. And then afterwards it starts going, it doesn't go to 11, it goes from 10, it goes to 20, then 30, then 40, right? Until you get to 100, and then it doesn't go to 110, it goes to 100, it goes to 200, 300, and 400. Those are the values of all the Hebrew alphabet. Now, if we have, like we said, a gematria, this is in the Zohar, of God's name. We have two of God's names, right? And he says that if you look at the numerical value, they have the same numerical value. This, even though it's different letters, but they have the same numerical value. That means there's a connection between them. And that's the rules of gematria. You have two words with the same numerical value, there's a connection even though it's a different word with different letters. Okay. So what are we up to? So when we have the name Eheyeh, which means I will be, right? So we have Aleph is 1, Hey. Aleph is like A1, Hey would be like a E, which is a 5. Yud would be like a I, which is a 10, and then another Hey, which is another 5. Together, that is 21. Okay, and it's the same gematria as Yud Hey Vav, which would be a I, E, i.e. F, right? That would be the sixth letter, I guess. Although it doesn't completely correlate with the English, but still, it would be the 10th letter, the 5th letter, and the 6th letter together is 21. So these two different names of God are the same numerical value, the same gematria, and that shows that there's some sort of equality between them, right? Some sort of a connection between them. Somehow they're equal. And now the computing the cycles of the year. That means there's 4 times of the year, right? Like we know, there's summer, there's winter, there's fall, there's spring, right? So those are the 4 times, and those are like the 4 letters of the word of God's name, which is Yud He Vav He, which is the 10th letter, the 5th letter, the 6th letter, and then the 5th letter, right? That would be it would be a I, H, or it wouldn't be an H, it would be a E, right? I, E, this F, E. If we're going in that order of the letters, but in the way we pronounce it would be like a well, you don't actually pronounce this name, but it would be the 10th letter it would be a Yud and a He and a Vav and a He. Okay, and they are the secret of Chachma and Bina, like we said, wisdom and understanding, and Tiferet and Malchut, which is the Partsuf, the 6 Sefirot together are called as under the one Sefira of beauty, and that together with the kingdom. So the Yud would be, the first Yud would be wisdom, right? The He, the first He would be, which is the second letter of God's name, Yud, and then He. The He would be understanding, Bina, and then Tiferet would be the Vav, compassion, right? Compassion and beauty would be the Vav, and then the He would be the kingdom. The second He would be kingdom. So, and these are in each one of the spheres. This God's name is in each one of the spheres. And Iburin, which means pregnancy, which is when we calculate when the moon will be born again, when is going to be the new moon. So we can actually calculate that precisely. And that is corresponding to the secret of Ibur, of pregnancy, and of the year, and the pregnancy of the month. That means sometimes we have 13 months, moon months in a year, and sometimes 12, and that's needed to keep the 2 calendars in sync, the moon and the sun calendar, right? And this is showing us that this is kind of showing us and hinting us about the spherots that are in Malchut, right? Are they full or are they missing? And all of them are from the source of the kingdom. Because if you're talking about above, in the Sefirot itself, in the Malchut, in the kingdom, in the heavenly worlds, in those heavenly aspects, there's no measurements and numbers. You can't calculate anything. All these calculations and measurements, they're talking about what the actual sun and the moon and the calculations of the times, right? Everything is in parallel. We have the source of it. The source of the sun is actually a spiritual source of the spiritual worlds above, right? And then it comes down in this world as a sun, right? Or as a moon, right? And so that's what we can actually see with our physical eyes, and we can relate to it and count it, right? But it's really hinting, and we can understand from it how the source of it, the spiritual worlds, actually work. So Rabbi Elazar asked his father, Rabbi Shimon, and he asked, but there's no numbers or calculations above the Malchut. But don't we know a few, calculations and measurements that our friends, the other rabbis and Kabbalists were learning, even in higher places. That means also in the Zer Anpin and Abba Ve'ima, in the wisdom, in the understanding, in the six Sefirot, and also in Erech Anpin, in the long face, which is like a higher constellation of the Sefirot. So he answered him, no, it's not. That's not how it is. Right? What does he say? All these calculations, they're all in the Malchut, in the kingdom, and they're in the kingdom of each and every partsuf, each and every constellation, every face has a kingdom, a Malchut, that's the lower Sefira, and that's the secret of your eyes are blessed with calculation. So this is like, for example, a father. He has not a father, a regular father, but in the sphere of father, which is wisdom, there are inside of it 72. The name of 72. Okay, so what is the name of 72? Okay, so that's a whole another thing to explain. But it's when you have God's name Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey, which would be the 10th letter, the 5th letter, the 6th letter, and the 5th letter, you can take Yud and spell it out. Like I say Yud, which is the 10th letter, but the way you spell the word for the letter Yud is Yud, Vav, Dalid, right? And then Hey, also you can spell, how do you spell Hey? Would be a Hey Aleph, or Hey, right? And depending how you'd spell it, right? It has a different spelling. There's different ways to pronounce it. There's a different way to spell it. Now, depending how you spell it, using which vowels and which letters, that would have a gematria. That means if you count all the letters that spell the word, you count them together, you can get to 72, right? You can do the calculation. There's also other ways to spell it, and each one there's 4 different ways, which is known as Av, Sag, Ma, Ban. Which is 72, 63, 45, and 42. Okay, so those are different corresponding to different levels, different spherot. So we have wisdom, which is Father, that has the name of God, Yud